Once again, due to current weather conditions, all elevators will be locked out for the duration of the sailing. We will make announcements prior to stepping into the port today once elevators reopen.
Hey there everyone, and welcome back to another very early morning video. And today we are once again going to be taking a look at some interesting electrical, fire alarm, and emergency systems unlike those we've seen before. Because these are not ones found in a stationary building on land. These are found in something where especially fire safety is more important than almost anywhere else, and where this is on a ship. Now, about a month ago, I did a video going on two different ships, on two different ferries, showing the different fire alarm electrical systems, and you guys really enjoyed it. And I put out a vote to see which one you guys wanted to see next, so that's what we're going to be doing into this video. Let's get into it. For some context, I live on the west coast of Canada in British Columbia. British Columbia has a huge coastline with many islands, including Vancouver Island, which is home to the city of Victoria, the capital of British Columbia. These islands are accessed by ship or plane, with BC Ferries being by far the most popular option. Founded in 1960, operating 25 different routes with 45 different vessels, they are not only the largest ferry system in North America, but the second largest in the entire world. Carrying more than 60,000 people daily and more than 22 million annually comes with an extensive list of ships in their fleet. That brings us to what we will be sailing on today. We will be taking a look at a ship and, as a whole, a class of vessels much older than those we looked at last time. In my previous video, I took two different ships on my two-way crossing between Vancouver Island and Vancouver. Specifically, Swartz Bay and Tsawwassen. The first ship I took was the late 2000s built Coastal class, specifically the Coastal Renaissance, being one of the three Coastal class double-ended ships. Then taking the mid-90s built Spirit of British Columbia, one of the two Spirit class ships, those being the largest in BC Ferries fleet. Today's ship, or class of ship as a whole, is one that won my vote by far. It may not be the biggest, it may not be the fastest, and it's certainly not the newest, but it still plays a crucial role in BC Ferries fleet. Today's ferry we're going to be looking at is going to be the C class, or also known as the Tsawwassen class. The Tsawwassen class is comprised of 5 different ferries. The Tsawwassen class, like the Coastal class we looked at last time, which is sometimes actually known as the Super C class, as they share some commonalities between their older sisters, the Tsawwassen class. They are both double-ended roll-on, roll-off, or simply known as ro-ro ferries. When they were originally constructed, they were the largest of their type in the world, at 457 feet long with a car capacity of 316. As a comparison, the largest now in the fleet, being the Spirit class, are 549 feet long with a car capacity of 358 and over 2,100 people. Back to the C class. They produced 11,860 horsepower, almost half of what some of the newer larger ferries make, providing a maximum service speed of 20.5 knots, 6,968 tons, except for the Queen of Alberni. They are 88 feet wide with a draft of 19.8 feet. The first two ships built in the class was the Queen of Coquitlam and the Queen of Tsawwassen. Those were built in 1976. The Queen of Oak Bay and the Queen of Surrey were built in 1981. Minor modifications made to those later two. Now for the Queen of Alberni. She was also built in 1976 along with the first two. However, that ferry has some much more noticeable differences from the rest of the class. The layout of that ship is significantly different. The Queen of Alberni was originally designed for overheight vehicle that usually can only go in the bottom of the ship. The Queen of Alberni was designed specifically for those larger vehicles. However, in 1984, a non-overheight deck was installed. These ships are expected to stay in service until 2029, when the new 7 ships are supposed to replace them. Today, we are specifically going to be sailing on the Queen of Oak Bay. I'm going to be catching an 8:25 sailing between Nanaimo Departure Bay and Vancouver Horseshoe Bay. Both of those terminals are different than the ones I went through last time. On Vancouver Island, there is 3 ferry terminals, and in Vancouver, there are 2. Now, Tsawwassen goes directly to Swartz Bay, and Tsawwassen also goes to Nanaimo Duke Point Terminal. However, there's the other terminal on Vancouver Island as well as Vancouver Left, and that's the route we're going to do today, which is Nanaimo Departure Bay and Vancouver Horseshoe Bay, which those terminals go specifically to each other. I know, it's confusing. The one last thing we're going to talk about before we hop on the ferry is going to be their history. And not to be a total mood killer here, but these ferries have had a less than smooth sailing career, with probably more incidents on the Cowichan class ferry, with the exception of the Queen of the North, which sunk after running aground in 2006. To begin with, the first incident that is documented is on August 9th, 1979, when the Queen of Alberni was transiting through Active Pass, which is a narrow passage that I did show in my last video, so make sure to check that one out. When it did ran aground on Galliano Island, tipping 15 degrees starboard. No humans were seriously injured in this, however, a racehorse on board was killed. 1980, Queen of Coquitlam tipped over, landing on her side while she was in dry dock. Of 1989, the Queen of Alberni collided with the loading dock at Departure Bay. 1992, Queen of Alberni collided with the Japanese freighter. 2 serious injuries, including 25 non-serious injuries. 1995, Queen of Coquitlam experienced an engine shutdown while approaching Horseshoe Bay. She crashed into the dock at the terminal. 2003, Queen of Surrey was disabled as a result of an engine fire. And then one of the most well-known, as it was captured all on video, was June 30th, 2005, Queen of Oak Bay. My ship lost power while approaching Horseshoe Bay, crashed right into the marina there, running over and destroying tons and tons of fishing boats, sailboats, and many small boats were damaged. Now that we've gone over some of the events in the C-Class's less than uneventful career, let's go ahead and get on this ferry from Nanaimo's Departure Bay headed to Vancouver Horseshoe Bay. Many parts of this video will be voiceovered for a better explanation, and because I picked the day to do this sailing right into a big storm, so there is lots of wind noise. Our ship, the Queen of Oak Bay, was loaded on schedule around 8:25 a.m. to begin the nearly 2-hour crossing. As you can see, we were loaded onto the upper vehicle deck, meaning it is allowed by Transport Canada for occupants to stay in their vehicles. However, later on in the video, I will go ahead and show the much more interesting lower vehicle decks on this ship compared to some of the newer ones. You can also see inside this upper vehicle deck how much more confined it is versus the new ones with pillars all over. In the vehicle decks here, you can see, just like the newer ships, there are these regularly dry sprinkler systems, meaning there is usually nothing in the pipe, and the sprinkler heads don't even have a plug in them, they're just open. So I'm assuming these are manually triggered via a pull station or somewhere in the engineering space. These can be remotely activated by opening the valve, allowing water or some sort of extinguishing product to go into that particular zone that is triggered. Already got different stuff. Notifier on here. Now, for notification on this ship, we have these general alarm bells, which is the main way to notify the occupants of an emergency other than the PA system, which is also a very important system on ships. So you'll see these 6-inch and 10-inch gray alarm bells all over the place. We'll look at more later on. Here we have what appears to be a notifier FST-951. We will see a few different generations of notifier addressable devices on this ship and a few different types of detection in general. So we'll make sure to take a look at more of these. You can see this one is a heat detector, and this is a heat detector because it's installed near the restaurant or the cafeteria, where there is a more highly chance of seeing smoke. A difference with these older C-class ships versus some of the newer ones is in these areas like this that are non-vehicular areas, you will notice there aren't the mist type sprinkler heads as you see on some of the newer ships. I've paused the video here and have created quite a blurry image, but if you can make out the door on the left hand side, that is a magnetically held open fire door, just like what you'd see on land and buildings, and there's another one on the other side of this short hallway here, with either side of this hallway having closets where life jackets are stored. You can see there's another fire door here. This one you get a better, clear image of that fire door magnet holding that door open, as well as that red push button on the wall, which is a manually activated door release, but we'll take a closer look at those later on. SFP 951 emergency light. So we've got notifier on this one, that's cool. Here I have to make some assumptions that this manual CO2 release is probably for this battery room, and I'm assuming this battery room is probably battery backup for emergency lighting, as it would make sense for it to be kept higher on the ship, as that's usually also where the emergency generators are kept higher on the ship. So in the case of flooding, or in the worst case scenario, a sinking, they will be the last part of the ship to go underwater, then hopefully maintaining that emergency power for as long as possible. We've just started pulling away here now. This here, Queen of Coquitlam, is one of the sister ships to what I'm on, Queen of Oak Bay. One of the 5 C-class ferries. We may be in for a bit of a storm. I got wind warnings last night that there might be 90-kilometer-per-hour gusts, so could get more interesting once we're out into the open. We'll see. Hopefully, it'll be fun. Notifier bell. Gone into this covered area to see if there's detectors, and there is too. Heat detectors. Look like what are they, FST 851s? That looks like a high temperature. I believe it might be high temperature because the dot in the middle goes to the circle. Got another gray bell here. They weren't kidding about the wind, and it's really freaking windy. I picked the worst day to do this. I'm no joke. I have to really push my way. I'm getting pushed now. I'm getting pushed hard. Holy crap. I picked the worst day to do this. You are actually... Okay, it's actually calm now. I had to really be pushing. Let's take a look at the back of the ship.
Emergency assembly areas and marine evacuation systems located on deck 5 and life jackets located on decks 5 and 6. If it is deemed necessary, instruction on how to put on a life jacket. In accordance with Transport Canada safety regulations, passengers are required to exit decks 2 and 3. Decks during the voyage. As a reminder, pets must remain in your vehicle. The outer deck pet area on deck 6. To access the pet area on the outer deck, passengers can follow the paw prints from the starfish stairwell up to deck 6. Please stay within the yellow line when on the upper outer deck. Dogs must be on a 100-foot frequency. Cats must be in a carrier.
Okay, I've got no choice but to go back into the wind now. Can't remember what those are called. I'll put in the video. I think they're they release automatically when they go underwater to let these let go and inflate. Pretty cool, actually. It's too difficult to walk out here today. Really windy. Please turn your car alarm off.
3594, please return to your car to turn off the alarm. Thank you.
Bingo. I would hang out here and show you guys the horn, but we don't go through the small passage on this route, so I'm not sure if we will hear the horn at all. All over the ship, you'll find many of these manual damper controls. There's also lots of damper indicators, which I will show later. And for pull stations, we have, which I believe are Notify MPS-950 manual pull stations. Door holders. And a manually release, I guess. You've got lots of these around here. I'll try and find some more indicators for the dampers. FSP 951. Guess these doors let go once we're actually underway. Sounds windy out there. I don't know if I want to go out here. Sounds scary. No elevators due to the weather. I don't know, the weather doesn't seem that bad. I mean, it's not great, but things aren't that unstable. The ship's still keeping pretty smooth. I mean, I wouldn't go kayaking out there, that's for sure. And that's coming from me, who's really irresponsible with that. Actually, you know what? I might do it. Just not out this far. Okay, I'm not. It is a little bit rough. This is one of the smaller ferries. I mean, this has a 7,000 tons. The big Spirit class, those are 18,000. I don't know if that would make a difference with how they handle, but I would think it would. Later ships gonna get moved around easier. But what do I know? That's just me saying crap. That's the lower deck down there. That is blocked off, not supposed to go down there. We've got a mix of 951s and 851s in this ship, so obviously notifier system, 320, 640, 3030, I don't know. Oh, it sounds cool down there. Hear noises. So if I'm not mistaken, this setup here looks like it's another ramp that can go down to the lower deck. Like this ramp can lower down, I think. Yeah, it's pretty tippy. Oh, it's not as windy anymore. Well, actually, I was looking for it. Well, you gotta get the life-saving one too then. It's fine. So good. Emergency generator room. They've got the elevators going again, and they've now opened up the lower car deck so we can go check it out. Oh, interesting. So they've got a half level on this one. Oh, cool. That's really interesting, actually, how these are set up.
All drivers and vehicle passengers, please return to your vehicles. If you have entrances to the stairs, there are elevators located in the front, middle, and back sections of the ship. To reduce engine exhaust, please do not start your engine until after the ship docks, and vehicles or lanes are directed to begin offloading. Thank you for sailing with BC Ferries. We look forward to seeing you again.
Might as well show you guys the elevator on this one. So these basically have 3 car decks of regular height vehicles, and then there's the full one of regular height, and then the center section of the ship is for the oversized vehicles. Are these working yet, or are these still disabled? I don't know. I'm gonna try and find the next elevator, as I wanted to show you guys. Better make my way back up there. Okay, well that's the other end. Each end's the same on these. Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show the elevator. I can hear the lower doors opening now. Almost there. All right, last. This is now at the Tsawwassen ferry terminal loading onto the Spirit of Vancouver Island. She is one of the 2 Spirit class ships, and they are the largest ships in the fleet. Even though they aren't the newest, they're probably my favorite ships in the fleet, and they will still be some of the biggest, because even once the new ships arrive, they are still going to be around the same capacity. Good. Under the bridge too, and that's closed as well. It's not very nice. Unless they always close that at night. Oh, you know what it is? It's probably because they can't have lights on ahead of the bridge to affect night vision. So it's not safe for people to be walking without lights. So, but you also don't want them to not be able to see. Because, like, this is the basic one that I found last time, but I want to find the one with all the info that we saw earlier. This is at the front of the ship here, and you can see where there's usually open windows to see through. They have blinds covering them up, which is, I'm assuming, for the same reason as for the deck around the bridge being closed, to limit lighting in front of the bridge to preserve night vision for the crew.
Further down.
Still not the super detailed one. So I'm not going to go too in depth with looking at anything on this Spirit class, this particular being the Spirit Vancouver Island, because in my previous video where I took the coastal, can't remember actually, I think it was coastal Renaissance, might have been Inspiration actually, I think it might have been coastal Inspiration, and then Spirit of one of them, can't remember again. I went way more into detail because it was my first time showing them, as well as it being daytime, so I could access more locations like that upper deck and towards the front where the bridge is, which I can't currently, which I'm assuming is due to light and keeping the bridge dark for nighttime vision to be kept. So those areas are closed. I also went down to the lower deck and showed that, but again, no sense today because I already showed it before and I won't be able to show it as good as I did last time. It's also not the nicest of weather. I'm sure you can hear the wind and the waves. There definitely were some stumbles on the sailing over, especially with elderly. Usually have a much harder time keeping their balance on the moving ship. Over 90 kilometer per hour wind gusts and a fairly rough sea. The ship does move, and I don't know, some people struggle with it more. I'm pretty used to it at this point. You learn to sort of feel what the ship's going to do, but for those that aren't from here or elderly, that can be more of a challenge. Sometimes safer to just stay sitting down and use all the handrails. I'm just waiting up here actually for us to go into active paths because I'd like to show the horn on the ship. I know I did on the coastal Inspiration last time, but I don't recall if I did or didn't on this one, so I'm going to wait until we get to the pass so that we'll blow the ship's horn. So that has our ship returning us docked, the Spirit of Vancouver Island. Now the Spirit class is definitely my favorite ship, as I said earlier. I like that they're a larger ship, as the larger ships have more places to explore and they have multiple decks, because in the summertime when the ship is full and there's lots of people traveling, lots of people from out of the province visiting, those are the people that are much more interested in the experience and like to stay outside and see all of the sights, which I totally understand, as it is a pretty beautiful place to be sailing around on a ship and there's lots of great views to see. And that has you fighting for a spot on the railing to look for things like whales. And on the Spirit class, it's just a little bit better because there's more deck space as there's multiple levels. Though I do still like the older ships as they have a lot more character to them as they've been around quite a bit longer. And that brings us to the ship I would like to see next, which would be good old Queen of New Westminster. She is the last of originally 7 of the V-class ships built, and the V-class ships were actually based off the Sydney class. BC Ferries had the Queen of Sydney, and she is right now, as this video made, laid up in the Fraser River, and it's a pretty cool ship that is still there and lots of people have explored it. And that was a sister ship to the MV Coho, which is operated by Blackball Ferry Line, which I have personally taken some pictures of that ship, which I will put in the video here. And as I was saying, the V-class, or what Queen of New Westminster, was based off of the Sydney class, and has some cosmetic changes and actually is longer because the ship was cut in half, kind of like a limousine, and added, I believe it was an 80-something foot extension in the middle, creating the ship to be much longer. So that's an old ship from 1964 and definitely has some history as they were the first ships in BC Ferries fleet, I believe, that were bought specifically for them, I want to say. However, currently her propeller fell off, and that could be a while before that gets installed back on. Now, I do want to mention, as a lot of people don't realize how the process works, when the ships are at the dock or at their berth, the way they stay there, because they're not actually getting tied up as far as during the day. I'm assuming at nighttime they likely are, but in the day they just keep some thrust pushing them into the dock to keep them there, which is very important. Actually, with the Queen of New Westminster, there was a mistake made where the ship slipped away from its berth while it was being loaded, and unfortunately a mum and daughter were in a vehicle that fell into the ocean, which they both were killed in that event. So it's really important that they keep thrust pushing them against the dock. So just an interesting way of how they stay there. That's how that works. This video was probably my last time I show them on my channel, as well as last time as I personally ever go on the C-Class, because they're really out of the way for me to get there. I only went on those ships because of the video, and they are supposed to be replaced in 2029, as BC Ferries is ordering 7 new vessels to replace the 5 of those, and I believe probably New Westminster, and adding 1 more ship as a backup, which is very needed, as when there is a breakdown, especially in the summertime when there's ships every hour, it has major impacts and will mess up the entire day, and is why BC Ferries is so hated by those that live here, not only because of the high costs, but when things go wrong and you're waiting there for hours and hours to get a ferry, it's a quite frustrating experience. So by adding more, that should help by having an extra ship and newer ships that I would like to say are more reliable, but I don't know about that, because the Coastal class has caused many problems with having to be shipped all the way back to Germany for drive motor replacements. So who knows, but either way, I will definitely make a video in 2029 if I'm still doing this thing, because that'll be pretty cool once there's some new ships. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you do want to see more of these videos, let me know. I also might like to show the Salish class of ships, which are a smaller ship going to some of the Gulf Islands. So let me know what you guys think. Also, I think it's the Northern Expedition is the largest of the ships that go up from Port Hardy up the BC coast more towards Alaska. That's an overnight ship that you sleep on, so that would be pretty cool to do. We'll see about that. I'd love to do it. Anyways, I'm still talking here. I'm supposed to stop that. If you do have any comments, questions, leave those down below. Might have already said that. And I do have an Instagram account. I actually have 2 of them. I have one, Nick Systems and Electric. That's for bonus content, stuff posted earlier than you'd see it on the YouTube channel. And I also have my Nick's Planes and Aviation account, where I post lots of cool pictures I take of aircraft and plane spotting, that sort of thing. So that's going to be it for this video. Alrighty guys, thanks for watching.